We are live.
Renewable Wave Energy by
Joshua Castro.
Giselle Guzman.
and Crystal Reyes. What is wave energy? The definition. Renewable wave energy is the transport and capture of energy by ocean surface waves. Once captured, the energy can be then used for things like electricity generation, water desalination, and the pumping of water. The importance. Wave energy provides an energy solution that is sustainable and does not pollute the planet or have other adverse effects. By furthering developing our abilities to create renewable energy sources, we can provide reliable power supplies and fuel diversification, which can enhance energy security, lower risk of fuel spills, and reduce the need for imported fuels. Renewable energy also helps conserve the nation's natural resources. Importance continued. This topic is important to human life because currently 84% of the world's energy currently comes from fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are bad because they produce large quantities of carbon dioxide when burned. Carbon emissions trap heat in the atmosphere and lead to climate change. In the United States, for instance, the burning of fossil fuels, particularly for power and transportation sectors, accounts for about 3/4 of our carbon emissions. Currently, the most prominent forms of renewable energy are solar and wind. However, wave energy is unique because it is the most concentrated form of renewable energy on Earth. With power density much higher than that of wind and solar energy, it is more consistent as solar is ineffective when the sun sets and wind is ineffective once the wind settles down. However, the waves never stop moving. History of wave energy. The first patent in wave energy happened in Paris in 1799. From 1885 to 1973, there was a big increase in exploring wave energy. About 340 patents were filed in the UK alone. The pioneer for modern wave energy was Yoshi Masuda, a Japanese naval commander pictured on the right. Masuda tested different wave energy devices at sea. Masuda is also credited for different wave energy inventions, such as the oscillating water column, which is initially used for small-scale navigation. Extensive research into wave energy began in the 1970s when the oil crisis occurred, which increased interest in different forms of renewable energy. Many devices during this time had low success rates. After the end of the energy crisis, the progression of the technologies remained slow until the early new century. This infographic showcases the different forms of renewable energy and discusses how we can use the wave energy. The kinetic energy of the tides is converted into electrical energy. The use of the energy from the rotation of the turbine can be used for the city, for the man, for the home.
Wave energy can be harnessed through a variety of methods and technologies. Some of the more common are listed below. The first I'll describe is called an absorber. Absorbers are comprised of a float which rides along a spar attached to a heavy plate, which holds it down. This technology harvests the energy from the waves as they move up and down. This is showcased in this slide right here. As you can see in the bottom right, the float will ride up and down along the spar, and this motion is then converted to electrical energy with a linear or rotary generator. Another method of harnessing wave energy is by the means of an attenuator. Attenuators capture energy by being placed perpendicular to the length of the wave. This causes the attenuator to continuously flex where segments are connected. In these segments, which are going to be right here on this photo, there are hydraulic pumps, and these pumps convert the motion of the flexing into energy. Another form is going to be the oscillation water column. This is going to be a partially submerged enclosed structure. The upper part of the structure above the water is filled with air. It's going to be this portion of the diagram. And incoming waves are funneled into the bottom part of the structure down here below. When these waves come through the structure, it causes the water column to rise and fall with the waves, which then causes the air in the top structure to pressurize and depressurize. This in turn pushes and pulls air through a connected air turbine at the top of the structure, converting into energy. So as the waves move in right here, this causes the air pressure right here to compress, which then moves the turbine, and as it falls back down, it creates a suction force, which again rotates the turbine. All this is then converted into energy. The name of the scientific journal we covered is Renewable Energy from the Ocean, a scientific journal by Robin Palk and Rod M. Fujita, which was taken in 2002 or written in 2002. This paper talks about how the growing concern over the threat of global climate change has led to an increased interest in research and development of renewable energy technologies. This paper looks at the current status of these forms of energy and the technologies behind them, followed by the potential each form to be a source of energy, and lastly, the environmental impacts of each. To introduce the paper, I have a quote here, which reads, "Vast and powerful, the ocean probably stores enough energy in the form of heat, currents, waves, and tides to meet total worldwide demand for power many times over." Right here is a page of the journal, which focuses on wave energy in particular. As for current status, it reads, in the United States, OTEC, or better known as Ocean Thermal Energy Conservation, research has stalled since federal funding was cut in the 1980s. Though pilot OTEC plants at Nell Hall were able to successfully produce net power, they were considered uneconomical compared to fossil fuels. Since then, company Sea Solar Power Incorporated has developed two conceptual models for OTEC plants. One 10 megawatt land-based model for small islands, and another 100 megawatt floating platform model for mainland use. Their model is 8 times smaller than the US government design for the same capacity plant. It therefore would use and discharge significantly less water and would cost about 1/4 as much. SSP plans to begin work on a 10 megawatt pilot project in Guam and a 100 megawatt floating plant in Tamil Nadu, South India. As far as the potential, in total, it is estimated that about 10 trillion watts or 10 billion kilowatts of power, approximately equal to the current global energy demand, could be provided by OTEC without affecting the thermal structure of the ocean. However, with the current cost of electricity generation from OTEC varying between 8 and 24 cents per kilowatt hour, which is significantly higher than fossil fuel cost, it is unlikely that this resource will be fully developed unless it is subsidized. The greatest potential for OTEC is probably for use on small island developing states, better known as SIDS. OTEC is only viable in the tropical seas, in areas where the thermal gradient between the surface and depth of 1,000 meters is at least 22 degrees Celsius. In the United States, potential sites include Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the continental shelf of the Gulf of Mexico, areas of the world ocean with the appropriate thermal gradient are shown in figure 2. As far as the environmental impacts, though fairly benign environmental impacts compared to the traditional power plants, OTEC possesses some potential environmental threats, especially if implemented on a large scale. Data from existing electric generating stations on the coast provide insight into possible impacts of OTEC plants. These stations impact the surrounding marine environment mainly through heating the water, the release of toxic chemicals, impingement of organisms on intake screens, and entrainment of small organisms by intake pipes.
The human impacts and resolutions. This is how we impact the environment. With the graph, this graph conducted in 2017, we can look at the different sectors negatively impacted on the environment. Our biggest pollutant came from transportation, which is 29%, and electricity close behind with 28% overall. So our human impacts the environment in many ways, including overpopulation, pollution, burning fossil fuels, and deforestation. Human behaviors have led to climate change, soil erosion, poor air quality, and undrinkable water. Fossil fuel emissions are the leading cause of climate change. Humans have heavily relied on fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas, for example, driving your car daily. Burning fossil fuels create climate changes and releases pollutants that lead to early deaths, heart attacks, respiratory disorders, strokes, and exacerbations of asthma. People started using coal in the late 1800s, and it became the main source during the Industrial Revolution era in the 1960s. Over a span of 60 years, with the population expanding, more commercial businesses, and the popularity of travel, the environment is quickly seeing negative changes. The changes are irreversible, but we can delay further extinction and global warming effects with the use of renewable energy. How can wave energy help? Implementing wave energy can reduce our dependence on carbon-based fossil fuels, enhance energy efficiency, and reduce harmful greenhouse gas emissions. Wave energy has an enormous energy potential. For example, the average 4-foot, 10-second wave can put out 35,000 horsepower per mile of the coast. Waves would provide 24/7 energy that could be harnessed for clean electricity. They're always coming and going in the morning, noon, and night. Therefore, they can create energy around the clock. Big cities and harbors next to the ocean can also benefit from harnessing the power from waves to power entire buildings and reduce costs. Turbines generate electricity through the power of waves, making it completely pollution-free. One advantage of wave power against other alternative energy sources is that it is easily predictable and can be used to calculate the amount that it can produce. In addition to providing power, converters can possibly become the base for an artificial reef if algae, mussels, and barnacles or corals take hold of the structure and begin to grow. Such reefs provide protection for fish and other marine life, in return increases marine diversity. So the potential cons for this, wave energy is still relatively new, and so it is unknown on the environmental effects it can have. Building electrical wires on the beach might provide or prove to be challenging because they can cause damage to marine life and the surrounding ecosystems. Wave energy converters are also costly because they are new and they're expensive to install. Because waves can be so strong, they can risk damaging converters. A big concern in onshore and nearshore schemes may have an effect on coastal erosion due to alteration of currents and waves. The converters will make noise pollution, which can be a problem for fish, dolphins, and other animals that rely on echolocation to find food and communicate. There are serious technical and bureaucracy challenges to harnessing wave energy. So some resolutions for that. Wave energy needs more funding and research to come to a definite version of the technology involved so that the countries can begin adding wave energy to their list of renewable energy. Plan of action consists of further developing renewable energy technologies, making them more efficient and affordable. The first step to creating wave power is figuring out the best location to put these energy converters to decrease the amount of damage. Slowly building up renewable energy infrastructures with the goal of eventually having renewable energy be the world's main source of energy, or at least only source of energy that's 100% sustainable and non-polluting.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.